I want you to visualize the most beautiful lie in corporate history. You know the one. It's Monday morning, you're in that kickoff meeting, you're looking at a roadmap just approved. The Gantt chart is this, like, cascading rainbow of productivity. Every single dependency is mapped, every role defined. In Q3, well, it looks like a smooth ride straight into a bonus check. You get this warm, fuzzy sense of control. You think, finally, a plan that is actually going to work.
Oh.
And then Tuesday happens.
Tuesday is inevitable. Tuesday is where the universe kindly reminds you that it does not care about your JIRA ticket.
Right. A key engineer gets poached. A vendor changes their API documentation without telling a soul, or leadership decides to pivot because of some competitor's press release. And suddenly that beautiful, perfect plan isn't a guide anymore. It's just a monument to what you thought was going to happen. It becomes a source of guilt almost.
It's the classic tragedy of modern project management. We spend enormous amounts of energy, sometimes months, predicting the future. And in doing so, we lose the ability to handle the present. We are so busy protecting the plan that we fail to protect the value.
That distinction, protecting the plan versus protecting the value, that is exactly what we're digging into today. We're looking at a fresh analysis of the AI Agile Manifesto, specifically a discussion that was recorded just yesterday, January 28th, 2026. It features Jawahar Prabhu and Naga Saisri, and they are really zeroing in on value 4.
And for those who might remember the original Agile Manifesto, from back in 2001, the fourth value was responding to change over following a plan, which was revolutionary at the time. But this update, it takes it a step further. It isn't just about responding, which kind of implies you're on the back foot. It's about adapting with intelligence.
That feels like a necessary upgrade, doesn't it? Responding sounds like damage control. Adapting with intelligence, that sounds like strategy. But let's be real for a second. Companies love plans. CFOs love plans. You can't just walk into a board meeting and say, we're going to vibe our way through Q2.
No, and that's the tension we really need to unpack. Yep. The source isn't arguing for anarchy. They're arguing that a rigid plan is essentially a set of assumptions frozen in time. The moment you press save on that roadmap, it starts aging. By the time you execute, the assumptions are often dead.
Assumptions frozen in time. That really sticks with me. So the mission for this deep dive is to figure out how we move from enforcing a zombie plan to actually navigating reality. And the kicker is that this isn't just a process change, it's a technological one. This is the AI Agile Manifesto after all.
That's the critical differentiator. We aren't just talking about doing stand-ups better. We're talking about how artificial intelligence changes the actual physics of how teams coordinate. We're going to look at 6 specific reflections from the source material, covering everything from silos and coordination to the actual role of AI in decision-making.
Okay, let's start with the structural stuff. The source identifies a phenomenon they call the silo trap. Now, we all know silos are bad. Everyone says break down the silos.
Yeah.
But the analysis here points out a really specific contradiction. Work flows horizontally, but people sit vertically.
It's the fundamental friction of the modern org chart. To ship a feature, value has to flow sideways, from design to engineering to QA to legal to marketing. But the authority, that flows down. The ownership is locked in that vertical slice.
Right. The designer reports to the head of design. The coder reports to the engineering lead.
So who owns the outcome? Who owns the actual value that's being delivered to the customer?
In my experience, nobody. Or, product, technically. But they don't actually control the resources.
Precisely. And that creates a very specific failure mode. When that Tuesday chaos hits and the plan breaks, people instinctively retreat. They go right back into their vertical safety zones. You start hearing things like, well, the design mock-ups were delivered on time, or the back-end API meets the spec.
The classic, not my circus, not my monkeys defense.
Which is rational behavior. If you're evaluated based on your vertical role, you protect your vertical role. But the customer doesn't care about your internal handoffs. They just care that the product works. The source argues that rigid plans just reinforce this. They turn the project into a relay race where everyone just wants to pass the baton and, wash their hands of it.
So if the relay race is the wrong model, what's the right one? Because you can't have everyone doing everything. You don't want your legal counsel trying to push code to production.
No, but you do want value ownership. When the baton drops, the legal counsel shouldn't say, well, engineering dropped it. They should be looking at the problem and asking, how do we as a team pick this up? It requires shifting the definition of success from I did my job to we delivered the value.
Which brings us to the mechanism of how these teams work together. The source attacks something I think we're all victims of, the coordination illusion.
This is one of the sharpest insights in the whole material. We often confuse managing dependencies with removing them.
I feel attacked. Managing dependencies is basically my entire calendar.
Think about the mechanics of it, right? You have
Yep.
Team A and Team B. Team A needs something from Team B, so they schedule a sync. Then they schedule a pre-sync to align for the sync. Then they have a status meeting to report that they're waiting on the sync.
And we call this collaborating.
But it's not collaborating, it's just coordinating. The source calls these coordination-heavy teams. They spend more hours aligning their calendars and updating JIRA tickets than they do solving the actual problem. They are just optimizing the wait time.
It's the illusion of motion. We look busy, the calendar's full, but the product isn't actually moving.
And the alternative proposed here is co-creation. Instead of, I do my part, hand it off, and wait for you to review it, we work in the same context simultaneously.
But doesn't that require a level of synchronization that is almost impossible in a remote, asynchronous world? Co-creation sounds great if we're all in a war room with a whiteboard, but most of us are on Zoom across 3 different time zones.
That is exactly where the AI component comes in. This is the bridge to our next segment. In a traditional setup, the bottleneck is context. I can't co-create with you because I don't know what you know. I have to wait for you to explain it all to me in a meeting.
Right. The latency of knowledge.
AI crushes that latency. This is where we talk about AI as an amplifier rather than just an automator. The source material really emphasizes that AI isn't just there to write boilerplate code or summarize emails. It acts as a shared context layer.
Okay, make that concrete for me. How does an LLM fix the fact that my back-end engineer doesn't understand the marketing constraints?
It acts as a capability bridge. So let's say you are that back-end engineer, you're building a feature, but you hit a snag that needs a decision on user experience on UX copy. In the old world, you stop. You open a ticket for the UX writer. You wait 3 days.
And the sprint fails.
But in this new model, you use the AI, which has access to your brand voice guidelines, previous copy, all the product specs, to draft a good enough version. You don't replace the UX writer, but you unblock yourself. You keep moving.
So it turns everyone into a temporary generalist.
It creates T-shaped skills on demand. You have your deep expertise, that's the vertical bar of the T, but AI gives you a much broader horizontal bar. You can be dangerous in SQL, decent in copy, and, passable in design instantly.
I can hear the skeptics screaming, though. Great, now we have mediocre code and mediocre copy because everyone is just dabbling. Isn't there a risk of quality dilution?
Well, that's a valid fear, but look at the alternative. The alternative is stasis. The alternative is waiting. And usually the good enough solution that keeps the feedback loop moving is infinitely more valuable than the perfect solution that arrives 2 weeks late. Plus, the expert still reviews it, but they review it after the work is in motion, not as a gatekeeper before it can even start.
Okay, so AI amplifies capability, it reduces the wait time, but the source also raises a red flag here about decision-making. They call it the decision-making balance.
Yes, this is crucial. There's a specific rule mentioned. Decisions AI should never make alone.
Which implies there are some decisions it can make alone.
Low stakes, reversible decisions. Maybe. But the source warns about 2 specific traps that teams fall into. The first is overtrusting. This is when a team treats the AI's output as gospel. The model predicted this user behavior, so let's bet the farm on it.
That's dangerous because, as we know, models can hallucinate. They can be very confidently wrong.
And they lack moral intuition. They like that smell test. The second trap is the opposite, ignoring it completely. Treating AI like a toy and just sticking to manual drudgery because we don't trust machines.
So the conscious partnership is the middle ground.
Exactly. Think of AI as the most well-read, fastest-working intern you've ever hired. It can process the data, spot the patterns, and propose a route. But the human must hold the steering wheel. The human says, okay, I see the logic, and I am taking responsibility for this action.
That word responsibility seems to be the linchpin here. We talked about value ownership earlier. If AI is doing the heavy lifting on coordination and context, does that mean the humans have to step up their ownership game?
It leaves the humans with only the ownership game. If you strip away all the busy work, the scheduling, the status reporting, the basic code generation, what is left for the human? Judgment, empathy, and accountability.
That's actually kind of terrifying. It's a lot easier to hide behind a spreadsheet than it is to stand behind a judgment call.
It is, and this brings us to the cultural shift. You cannot run this kind of AI agile system in a culture of blame. The source is very specific about this. Learning must replace blame.
Because if I'm going to step outside my role, if I'm going to use AI to write copy, even though I'm a dev, just to keep the project moving, I need to know I won't get my head bitten off if it's not perfect.
Correct. The source discusses how silos are actually comfortable because they provide cover. I did my job as a shield. When you move to shared ownership, you drop the shield.
So how do you build the trust that's required to drop the shield? The manifesto talks about trust as a mechanic, not just a feeling.
It ties right back to transparency. In the perfect plan world, trust is often low because visibility is low. I don't know if you're actually working or just scrolling Reddit, so I demand a status meeting. I demand a Gantt chart update.
Surveillance disguised as management.
But in an AI-enabled co-creation environment, the work is visible by default. The context is shared. I don't need to ask you what you're doing because I can see the artifact evolving. When transparency goes up, the need for these performative trust exercises goes down.
It's practical trust.
Mm.
I trust you because we're looking at the same dashboard, not I trust you because we did a trust fall at the offsite.
And that changes the speed of the team. Low-trust teams are slow because they are constantly verifying. High-trust teams are fast because they are constantly executing.
I want to circle back to the core conflict, the plan versus the reality. We've covered silos, coordination, capability, and trust. If a listener is sitting there right now looking at their perfectly color-coded roadmap for the next 6 months, what is the aha moment they need to take away from all this?
The pattern to recognize is that the perfect plan fails because it is brittle. It relies on things not changing. It relies on fragmented ownership and delayed intelligence.
And the alternative, intelligent adaptation, it assumes things will change.
It's the difference between a train and a rally car. A train is efficient, it's powerful, and it runs on a perfect plan. The tracks. But if there's a boulder on those tracks,
Game over.
a rally car is chaotic. It's sliding, it's adjusting, the navigator is shouting instructions in real time, but it can handle the terrain. The source uses this metaphor of shifting from reacting to a crash to navigating a route.
That distinction is huge. Reacting implies you've already failed. Navigating implies you're in control of the uncertainty.
Navigating means you see the cliff coming because the AI, your radar, picked it up. You turn the wheel because you have the authority, the ownership to do so. You don't have to file a ticket to ask permission to turn the wheel.
You don't need permission to not die.
Yeah.
I feel like that should be on a poster in every single office.
It's funny, but think about how many corporate disasters happen because someone saw the iceberg but didn't have the role authority to steer the ship.
So, bringing this down to earth, if I'm a manager or a team lead listening to this and I want to stop playing calendar Tetris and start navigating, what do I do tomorrow?
First, look at your teams. Are they organized around roles or value? If you have a design team and a dev team, you're already siloed. Try to align them around a value stream like onboarding or retention where they share the outcome.
And on the tech side of things,
Stop using AI just to generate content. Start using it to curate context. Ask yourself, does everyone on my team have access to the same brain? If your strategy documents are locked in a PDF on a SharePoint that nobody reads, you have no shared intelligence, put that into a model, make it queryable.
and finally, the human element.
Validate the judgment, not the process. Stop asking, did you follow the plan? And start asking, did you make the right call given the new information?
It really does sound like a completely different job description for leadership.
That is the provocative final thought I'd offer. If AI can provide the context and if the team shares the ownership, does the role of management fundamentally shift?
Shift to what?
From coordinating people, just moving chess pieces around to curating intelligence. If the machine handles the coordination, the leader's job is to build the smartest possible environment for the team to operate in.
You're not the traffic cop anymore. You're the architect of the brain.
Exactly. The world is moving too fast for traffic cops.
That is a lot to chew on. I think I'm going to go look at my calendar and cancel some status meetings.
A solid first step.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. Keep navigating, everyone.
See you out there.